Good evening, folks. This is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates.
The Earth is located around 3.5 miles southeast of the Earth now. The solar wind is also
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be on this planet of ours. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody here who has joined this program tonight. We will be joined probably by a lot more people who may have not seen this program before. Earlier today, I posted some information on Newsbreak, which is an online news source. The reason I posted information there was because someone put information that was not correct about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake and linking it to the San Andreas Fault. They put incorrect information up, and we will probably be joined by people that have never been here before. So mods, please help us out. Mods, please keep an eye out for those people. And let's make sure that their questions are answered. If at all possible, let me know about it in some way, shape, or form. We appreciate all of you being here with us. As we have been known to do in past programs, we're going to start off this program with the Pledge of Allegiance and the United States National Anthem. Would everybody please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now would you make welcome straight from Washington, D.C., the United States Army Corps Quartet.
Yeah.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Oh, yeah! Come on, folks, let them know it. America's finest right there.
America's finest, United States Army Barbershop Quartet, singing the national anthem for us from the 2015 Barbershop Quartet Convention. We want to pay special thanks to all of them. Sorry about that. We want to pay special thanks to our Army, our Marines, our Air Force, our Coast Guard, all of our armed forces, including Space Force. God bless you all. I want to also pay thanks to the men and women of our allied forces that help protect this world and their own countries. May God bless you all, and may God return you home to your families in safety when your tours of duty end. Thank you so much for your service. God bless you all. Thank you so much, guys. It means a lot to us to have you here. Folks, as the title of our program suggests, I made this commitment to you yesterday that we're going to be talking about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I told you also that we would talk about the slow slip tremors. I'm going to be talking about that first. Why? Because the slow slip plays into what we're seeing literally happen, bringing in the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. How's that possible? Quite frankly, Sue Garamoth just gave us a $5 super chat. Thanks so much for that, Sue. God bless you for that. We really, really appreciate it. The slow slip tremors are indicative of a much larger quake hitting. A much larger quake hitting in the Pacific Northwest. Now, we are going to be talking about this significantly tonight, but I want to show you what these tremors are doing now, today. And quite frankly, folks, what has been going on is almost outlandish. We've been talking about this a lot in the previous programs, that the USGS is not, I repeat, is not telling us what is exactly happening. Sometimes they post some earthquakes on the map. Other times they do not. They're also not showing us where the slow slips are happening. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network usually does. Okay? But not always. Not always at all. Okay? What I want to show you is this. Okay? I have a map showing the actual areas that are involved right now with the slow slip. From Canada all the way down south to northern California. Not southern California, but northern. California. I want to make that very clear. Right now, this moment now, we are not talking about Southern California. We're not talking about Southern California. I'm strictly talking right now, this moment, about the Pacific Northwest and Northern California down to the volcanoes at Shasta and Mount Lassen. Shasta and Mount Lassen. Kramelots just gave us a $10 super chat. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. God bless you for that. Folks, there's a lot going on. And I would be not responsible myself if I did not bring all this information out. I've been very careful with what I've been telling you. I've been very careful with the information, making sure it's all correct. I do not want to give anybody any false information. I also don't want to give any information that would hurt anybody. I don't want to give out any information that may come to hurt somebody. By giving anybody false information in terms of, oh, you can beat this. You can beat this. This earthquake that's going to hit is going to be a 9.0 to a 10.0 magnitude earthquake. Okay? That you can take to the bank. I want to make it very clear what we're looking at. To the point that we are not joking here. I'm not poking fun at it. I'm telling you the absolute truth. Because if we don't, we are all looking out the backside of nowhere. Okay? That's basically it. We would be looking out the backside of nowhere. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you the tremor map provided by the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, PNSN. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network is run by the University of Washington. So I'm bringing it all out. I'm putting it out there for everybody. Hurricane Heather says, much love, y'all. I need to rest. I'm not feeling well. Heather, please take care of yourself. If you want to comment, please do so. But please take care of yourself. We're worried about you. We care about you. We want you to be in good health. Heather is one of my dearest friends on here. You all are dear friends. Heather's been with me from almost day one here on the Emergency Management Associates Network. Just so you all know, I've been on the air for 4 years. This is the second Emergency Management Associates channel that I've had. The past one I had for nearly 4 years, some hacker got to my Emergency Management Associates Gmail address and hacked into that, and the next thing I knew, they'd hacked into my Emergency Management Associates program on YouTube, where I couldn't get into it. Now everything that I put up for 4 years was taken down. So there's no information about what I'm talking to you about right now. We've touched on it in the past few months since I changed to this new channel. But the information I'm giving you is information from even 3 years ago. It's nothing really new, but it is. Because it came from 3 years ago, it's still shall I say, pertinent to today. The information is still pertinent. It hasn't changed. That's what I'm trying to get through to everybody here. The information I'm giving to you now, we came out with 3 years ago. Me and a man named Terry Rempel. He authored 99% of what I'm going to tell you tonight. I'm also going to throw in my own opinions and my observations from then until now. As I have gained more and more experience, I've gained some knowledge here that I want to give to all of you. So that's what we're talking about. On our program right here, I've given you the tremor map that the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network put out last night. This is information pertinent to what has happened yesterday. 307 tremors in this area. Notice from the from the northwest British Columbia area, including Vancouver, British Columbia. They're not showing any tremors at all. None. But the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network told us that there's 307 tremors down here from Medford, Oregon, down here into Northern California to include Mount Lassen and Mount Shasta. Mount Lassen and Mount Shasta. Okay? 307 tremors there. But folks, guess what? They did not show us anything further north. What I'm going to show you is nothing really new, because this is typical of what we have seen coming out of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network in months and years past. Okay? What I'm going to show you now are tremors that have happened today throughout the entire Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon. Since the PNSN has shown you what has happened over in southern Oregon and down into the Northern California area, I'm not going to touch on that, except to say there's a lot more than what they're telling us about. Let it be totally known that they are not telling us everything. The first seismogram I'm showing you now is Cannon Beach Fire Station in Oregon, on the southern part of Oregon. Cannon Beach Fire Station. Look at the tremors here. Again, this is on the coast of Oregon. We even have an earthquake last night. An earthquake last night. The top of this seismogram started off at 5 p.m. yesterday evening. Then the numbers go down from there, starting off with 1700 hours, which is 5 p.m. 1800 hours, which is 6 p.m. 1900 hours, which is 7 p.m. 2000 hours, which is 8 p.m. 2100 hours, which is 9 p.m. Then when you go down further, where you see 000, it actually says 2 zeros, 00. That's midnight. Midnight last night and early this morning. Now, I'm going to enlarge this so you can see the data correctly. Okay? Just after Okay? This is just after 8:45 p.m. last night on this blue line. Just after 8:45. This is probably 8:49 p.m. This is a 3.0 earthquake. The other vertical lines on this seismogram are all tremors. And you also see tiny dots. Those tiny dots are 0.1 tremor. 0.1 tremor. And you can see other tremors here as well. This is just one seismograph that's giving us these numbers. Giving us all these tremors here. Let's go over further north to Coos Bay, Oregon. Look at this. Look at these numbers now. Coos Bay, Oregon, at the very top here. Okay, again, the very top shows us starting off at 5 p.m., 1700 hours. Look at these vertical lines here. Again, look at that long vertical line over here on the left center. This happened at about 9:30, about 9:34 p.m. last night. This is also a 2.9, 3.0 earthquake. And you can see the shorter lines there. Those shorter lines appear to be about a 2.0 magnitude earthquake. Okay? And you can see these shorter vertical lines all over this seismogram. Literally all over this seismogram. These are all tremors. They're all tremors. Why is Pacific Northwest Seismic Network not showing us this data? Number one is because they think they don't have to. They think they are giving us all the information. Okay? The next one I'm going to show you, also in Oregon. This is Depot Bay. Look at this. This is quite a bit busier than the other seismograms that I'm showing you. Okay? Look at this. Look at all these vertical lines here. Now, you see thicker lines here, thicker horizontal lines. Okay? Why are we seeing thicker horizontal lines? These thicker horizontal lines, folks, represent magma that's coming through magma channels in the ground. I don't think that there's a volcano at Dupage Bay. My studies during the past 4 years and previous before that have not shown me to have any volcanoes at Dupage Bay. So this is magma that's headed from the Pacific Ocean, where the Pacific Plate is, not in the ocean, because the magma is down in the crust of the earth, traveling to the volcanoes. But we're seeing on this seismogram, we're seeing the magma moving. Okay? It's called magma pulse signals. Magma PULSE signals. Magma headed to the volcanoes. The magma lines here that you're seeing, the magma pulse signals, start thin and get thicker and then get thinner again. Or they start thicker and get thinner and get thicker again. Regardless, this is magma headed to volcanoes. The vertical lines here are showing tremors, possibly caused by the magma coming through the magma chamber. down inside the ground, in the crust of the earth that we walk on. Magma that's coming in under pressure causing tremors, earth movement. Now, there are also places on this seismogram that are not necessarily showing magma. Where you see vertical lines or dots on this seismogram, that is actual earthquake activity caused by seismic movement, tectonic plate fault movement. Okay? And down at the bottom, you see a very thin black line here at the very bottom of this seismogram. Let me raise it up into the air and enlarge it so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay? This happened, I pulled this seismogram just after 1:30 this afternoon. On this black line, the black line represents 2 p.m. And for the most part, where these earthquakes hit, these long vertical lines, or excuse me, not long, but longer vertical lines, it's where there's not much magma present. However, that may or may not be completely true either, because the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network has also done something else to these seismograms. They've turned the seismograph down. The machine that gives us these seismograms, they've turned the machines down, or they're just barely giving us information, which means these horizontal lines may indeed be thicker if the machine had not been turned down as much as it is. And I believe it's been turned down a lot, because above this, okay, JB Maps just gave us $17.77 super chat. Thank you so much, JB Maps. JB says, Ron, your faith as well as the faith of our whole family, this whole family, gives me hope. I sure love all those in the faith. May God bless all of his children. I concur, JB Maps, and thank you for that wonderful super chat. God bless you for that. Anyway, above this activity at the bottom, without these lines being squished together, misappropriated lines, that's because somebody moved the paper at the seismograph. Somebody diddled with the seismograph. Okay? But above that, you see these horizontal lines. They are very thin horizontal lines. What that means, folks, if you look at the whole seismogram completely together, where the lines are very thin means that the agency turned down the seismograph, turned it down electronically, so it's not giving us the information that it otherwise could. Okay, it's a proven fact, because above it showed a lot of activity, but all of a sudden below it, the lines are thin, and then they get thicker again rapidly. That does not happen in real life. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the people are playing with this. The people that are getting paid to show us documented information are not giving us that documented information at all. They're playing with us. And I've talked about that before on this program. S-Nort is giving us a thumbs up. Thank you for that. Possibly for JB Maps super chat, and that's wonderful too. Thanks, S-Nort, we appreciate you. Her name's Susan, a wonderful lady. She's also been with this program a very long time. We appreciate everybody that's here with us. Anyway, so we're showing tremors and earthquakes here at Coos Bay, Oregon. Let me show you a couple other places here in Oregon. Then I'm going to show you some more places in Washington. And then we're going to come together and show you everything. Everything. Okay? This, folks, is Portland, Oregon. This seismogram comes from Portland, Oregon. Now, what you're seeing here on this seismogram is a bunch of gobbledygook. Okay? You see here up and down wavy lines. Okay? This is not what usually happens on seismograms. And these wavy lines, these zigzag lines, are not appropriate. These zigzag lines have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the seismic activity. It's someone that's messed with the seismograph. But we're still seeing the seismic information here. That's why I wanted to use this. And yes, this comes from Portland, Oregon. It is inland from the coast. This may or may not have anything to do with the slow slip tremors up and down the entire Pacific Northwest coast going down into Northern California. But I thought you deserved to see what is actually going on. We have not shown activity in Portland, Oregon for quite some time, because usually there isn't a lot. But even though there's a lot of gobbledygook thrown in, it's called artifact, you can also see seismic activity. And for the most part, it's all tremor activity. It's all tremor activity. Down at the bottom of this, you see a thick blue line. And one other line down below that to the left. There may be some 2.0 magnitude earthquakes here in Portland. 2.0 magnitude earthquakes. Anything 2.0 to 2.9 are considered to be minor tremor or minor earthquakes. Minor earthquakes. Tremors are 1.0 to 1.9. 2.0 to 2.9, minor earthquakes. 3.0 to 3.9 are considered to be small earthquakes. 4.0 to 4.9 are considered to be moderate earthquakes. Moderate earthquakes. 5.0 to 5.9 are considered to be large earthquakes. 5.5 to 5.9 are considered to be very large earthquakes. 6.0 to 6.9 are considered to be very strong earthquakes. 7.0 and above are major earthquakes. 9 and 10.0 and possibly even larger would be considered major megathrust earthquakes. Major megathrust earthquakes, like we had in Japan at Fukushima. We're going to probably talk just a tiny bit about Fukushima and what happened just a few years ago. Not even a few, it was 2011 when that earthquake hit off the coast of Japan and caused a major meltdown of a nuclear power plant called Fukushima, Japan. Okay? But this is Oregon. I wanted to make sure that you were seeing this. I believe it's very, very important for what we're talking about tonight. Folks, this is another seismogram. This is Willapa Golf Course. Willapa Golf Course in Washington State. Willapa Harbor Golf Course in Washington State. Let me enlarge this so you can see it adequately. Okay? You see these very tiny tremors up here at the top of this seismogram. Okay? There are about 5 or 6 tiny tremors here at the top of it. Look at all these tremors down here. This is important to note. These are also considered to be slow slip tremors, but not all. The long line over here on the left-hand side, this happened just after 07 a.m. this morning. This is probably 7:02 a.m. this morning at Willapa Harbor Golf Course in Washington State. This is a 2.2 magnitude earthquake, not a slow slip tremor. We have several minor earthquakes here. Down here near the bottom on the left-hand side, we have another 2.1, 2.2 magnitude earthquake here. In the center right at the very bottom, this, folks, appears to be a 2.6 to 2.7 earthquake. Minor earthquake. Above it on the black line to the right center, this is a 2.2 magnitude earthquake. Minor earthquake. Down below that on the right, in the red, you see another earthquake there that looks to be about 3/4 of an inch to an inch long. That is a 2.1 magnitude earthquake. But over to the left on the blue line, just to the left of that on the blue line, this, folks, is a 2.8, 2.9 magnitude earthquake. Just below a small earthquake. 2.8, 2.9 magnitude earthquake. You see a lot of other tremors here. Those are also part of the slow slip. They're also part of the slow slip. Slow slip are tremors or microquakes that are less than 1.9. They are tremors that are less than 1.9, including microquakes. Okay? I'm trying to give you an example of what's going on. All those tremors that they had on that PNSN tremor map were all microquakes and tremors. Microquakes and tremors. Now, I'm going to go further north. I want to go over to Nassau, Washington. If you play around or visit the seismograms on the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, this comes from the radar, ARDR seismogram, Nassau, Washington. Okay? I'm going to enlarge this so you can see what's going on here. Look at all these tiny tremors here. Even microquakes. Even microquakes here. Yes, we also have a 1.9 tremor here on the left center here. Over to the right, that appears to be a 2.1 minor tremor. 2.1 minor tremor. But again, look at that descending line going from left to right there. All those descending lines going left to right. Someone monkeyed with the seismograph. There's no way in heck that that is normal. Normal is straight horizontal lines. Not cockeyed, not jumbled up. Okay? That's one of the reasons I'm showing you that. I want you to become familiar with seeing seismograms and what it means. I'm going to go further north to Fidalgo Island in northern Washington. Look at this. This is also part of the slow slip. There are no, well, there could be a very minor tremor. I don't think it's an earthquake at all down at the very bottom. Just a minor tremor, probably a 1.5, 1.6 tremor. But all of the rest of these are all tremors, all over the place. These were not included on the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network's tremor map. They were not included. This is frequently what happens with the PNSN. They only want to show us what they want to show us and nothing else. Let's go further north. This is Friday Harbor. Friday Harbor. Here, on this seismogram, yes, we are seeing a lot of tremors. And even up at the top in the red, on that red line here. This red line happened just after 5:30. Well, actually 5:15. Probably about 5:04, 5:05 last night. Actually not 5:15, about 5:19, 5:20 last night. Okay? This was probably a 2.4, 2.5 minor earthquake. And you can see tremors, the rest of these tremors, all over this seismogram. Okay? There's probably close to 50 tremors here, just on this seismogram alone. Okay? Let me show you a couple more, just to give you an idea of what exactly is happening. Okay? I'm going over to Pacific County, Washington, along the coast. This is what they call the NEMA site. The NEMA, the NEMA site. Okay? Along the coast of Washington. Look what we're seeing here. Look at all these vertical lines, guys. This does not have anything to do with magma. This has nothing to do with steam coming from a volcano. These are all tremors. Minor tremors all over the place. Hundreds of tremors from last night after 5 o'clock till now. Okay? Look at that. Over 100 tremors, I would say, probably close to 200. Okay? This does happen. This does happen on some of the sites. Okay? Let me see if I can find another one that's similar to this. Nope. But I want to show you one more in Washington. This comes from the Department of Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife Services in Washington. It's called Tioga. It's a law enforcement site where they have the seismograph. Look what we're seeing here. Folks, these are all tremors. Every last one of these are tremors again. Again, this is in northern Washington. This was not covered on that tremor map that they showed us. In other words, guys, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network has not been honest with us. They have never really been honest with us for a very, very long time. Just one more for kicks and giggles. This is Orcas Island. Orcas Island, Washington. This one is not showing us as many tremors. This is in the northern part of Washington State. On this one line here this morning, just after 8 a.m. this morning, we're seeing tremors. We also see here over to the right center, this is a 2.8, 2.9 magnitude earthquake. Further to the right is a 1.9 tremor. Then a 2.4 magnitude earthquake. And to the left of that, 1.9, 1.8 magnitude tremors. And then some very tiny tremors after that. All of these should have been included on that tremor map, but they were not. They were not. For whatever reason. And right now, honestly, it doesn't matter. Because they have not been accurate with any of their information in a long time, if ever. When I first started covering the volcanoes and the slow slips in Washington and Oregon and what was going on, I understood very quickly that they have not been honest with any of us for a very long time. However, guess what, guys? The volcanoes, they were spot on. The seismograms at the volcanoes were spot on. There was a lot of activity shown on the seismograms. But once I got covering it, guess what happened? They either shut the seismographs down, there was no seismograms available, or they turned them down, where they're not showing much of any information at all. I'm going to show you examples of that right now. First off, I'm going over to Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier, Camp Sherman. This is over at the northern rim of Mount Rainier. I'm going to show you tremors for the most part. Yes, there's even one minor earthquake here. You can see the minor earthquake on the red line to the right. All the rest of this information here, coming from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, are showing minor tremors at Mount Rainier. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up, why are they not showing all of this information on the EMSC, not the EMSC, the USGS map? Why is this information not showing on the United States Geological Survey map? Because the USGS doesn't want us to see it either. Occasionally, they will report a minor tremor, 1 or 2 minor tremors at Mount Rainier, and occasionally even at Mount St. Helens. Occasionally. Rarely, if ever, have they shown an actual earthquake at Mount Rainier or Mount St. Helens in a very, very long time. Yet we pay taxes. We pay income taxes to the United States government to operate the agencies. And guess what? They're not adequately showing us information. Even this seismogram is not necessarily showing us accurate information. They're not. Let me show you another seismogram coming from Mount Rainier. This is Camp Muir on the southern side of Mount Rainier. Again, we're seeing another earthquake over on the right-hand side. Guess what, folks? This is the same seismogram that I just got through showing you at Camp Sherman. The same thing. They copied and pasted the seismogram from one place to another. I double-checked it. Yes, they have done this before. They've done it before at other volcanoes. Glacier Peak, Mount Baker, Mount Constitution, Olympic Mountain. They've done it Mount St. Helens, they've done it at Mount Adams, they've done it at Mount Hood, they've done it at Bachelor Volcano, they've done it at Sisters Volcano, they've done it at Newberry Volcano, and all the others including Crater Lake, and further south even Shasta and Lassen. And guess what, folks? They're not even showing correct information at those volcanoes either. They have doctored the information to show what is less than accurate. And I have proved that over the last 4 years. I've proven it over the last 4 years. This is Mount Rainier. Let's just go over to Mount St. Helens. I'm just going to show you one seismogram at Mount St. Helens from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. Because why? Anybody that has been over to the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network and has tried to look up seismograms from Mount St. Helens during the last few days, even the last week, guess what you're going to find? Nothing. Every one of those seismographs has been taken down. It says photo not available. Every seismogram but this one. This is seismogram SHW. SHW. This is Mount St. Helens West. Yes, we're showing tremors on this seismogram. And over on the bottom left, to the left here, on the blue line, we're showing a 2.7 magnitude earthquake. Up above it on the black line, I forgot to tell you this, guess what? That's a 1.5, 1.6 tremor. But over here on the far left bottom, we're seeing a 2.6 magnitude earthquake, minor earthquake. Over on the right bottom red line, that is a 2.3 magnitude earthquake. All the rest of these are all tremors. They're all tremors. But how accurate can this be if they have taken down all the seismograms, every one of them? First off, I tried to call the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network today, twice. I didn't get very far, but a recording. I did leave a message, and I'm also going to send them a text message myself. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to send an email to try to provoke a conversation about why the seismographs at Mount St. Helens are all down, not recording any information, turned off. I'd certainly like to know, because the last conversation I had with them, they said they don't turn anything off. They don't display any inaccurate information. They don't downgrade earthquakes. Really? We've kind of proven that over the past few years. Yes, they do downgrade. They alter the seismographs and they turn them off. This is just one example at two different volcanoes in Washington. And I can show them up and down the entire West Coast. From Mount Baker on the north, near the Canadian border, going all the way down into Southern California. Altered seismograms, inaccurate reporting, and seismograms that aren't even there because they turn off the machines. Yeah, they do. Now, with that said, what are we seeing here? I just got through taking an hour explaining the slow slip process and what it means. The slow slip process tells us that we have a lot of tremors happening. And when we have a lot of tremors happening, that means that these tremors are indicating that a larger earthquake is coming. In every case where we've seen a ton of tremors, swarms of tremors, it's always indicated that a larger earthquake is coming. It's not releasing pressure. A larger earthquake is coming. Melba Hanska says apparently USGS is totally unconcerned with the safety and well-being of the public. Those are my sentiments exactly. My sentiments exactly. And I've dealt with these people. I've tried talking to them. I have even talked with some of the seismologists, and they have out and out lied to us. Someone mentioned Ridgecrest earlier. Let's talk about Ridgecrest for just a moment. Ridgecrest is in northern Southern California, if that makes any sense. It's in the northern part of Southern California in the Mojave Desert. When Ridgecrest hit, before the 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit, the day before, there were two 6.9 magnitude earthquakes on July 3rd. Two. USGS, in its infinite wisdom, took one of them down and denied that it happened. The other 6.9, they downgraded to a 6.4. I documented both earthquakes, two separate and distinct locations, two separate and distinct earthquakes, within probably 20 miles of each other. Yet USGS said one of them didn't happen. The next day, there was a 7.1 magnitude earthquake. Prior to all this stuff happening, for weeks, maybe even over a month, there were minor tremors and minor earthquakes up and down the entire southern part of California, stretching from North San Diego County all the way up and into Mojave Desert, up to and including Olancha, California, 65 miles north of Ridgecrest. And yes, there were earthquakes at Ridgecrest as well, and Olancha, California as well, before the major earthquakes hit. Now, when the 6.9s and the 7.1 hit, at that point in time, I was not paying attention to all the data that could verify how strong these earthquakes were. At the time, I was reporting on every individual incident, showing what was going on. Maybe I trusted at that time, maybe I trusted them to report accurate information, which they were not doing. But I didn't verify those earthquakes either. I reported on those. Why am I questioning it now? Because, folks, they may have been larger earthquakes. Those two 6.9s could have been much larger earthquakes, and we have proven that happening in times past. And since those two 6.9s happened, when USGS says those earthquakes were something, many times they're totally different, even today. Even today, around the world, they're actually larger than what they're saying they are. When they have reported, for example, a 7.0 earthquake, I've gone over and checked what the European agency says. The EMSC, the European agency, is a European seismological agency. And what I found were earthquakes even larger than what USGS said they were. Even sometimes a full magnitude larger. USGS says it was a 7.0, it was also an 8.0. Okay? USGS saying there's a larger earthquake there. Or no, I'm sorry, USGS saying it's one size, but in not all actuality, it's a full magnitude higher. Should that happen? No. Absolutely not. That should never be happening. But it is. It is. Over in Papua New Guinea. I'm sorry, not in Papua New Guinea, Papua Indonesia, just 13 minutes ago. We had a 5.2 large earthquake. And right after that, we had a 5.7 magnitude earthquake, just 13 minutes ago. That just happened. It just came in my earpiece. I looked it up, and I told you about it now. Okay? It's not necessarily the USGS that's reporting it. Anyway, let's get back to California and Oregon and Washington. What I'm telling you guys, Richard Smith just said something that I want to repeat here. He's in the chat. He says, the age of confusion. Knowledge will increase and men will run to and fro. He's exactly right. age of confusion. Most of the public, it doesn't matter whether they're here in the United States or in Europe, most of the public lives in a state of confusion because they are not given adequate data to even govern their own lives. They are told one thing and then they find out another, and they're confused, but they've gotten to the point that they don't have any other answers. So when they're told one thing, they tend to run with it and not question it, because that is what has happened during the last 50, 70, or even 100 years. It's happened here in the United States, but in the past 50 years ago, we got more truthful information than we're getting now. Okay? More truthful information than we're getting now. Now, folks, the big one's coming. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to hit. It's literally a matter of time. It could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, or it could happen the next day. But it is going to happen. You can count on it. I promise you, you can count on it. Now, I want to talk about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. That earthquake is going to be a 9.0 to a 10.0 magnitude earthquake. Why do we know that? Because scientists have been digging into the earth in and around Washington and Oregon and California and up into Canada, British Columbia. They have looked at the ground. They have looked into the ground and found layers of sediment that prove how the earthquake hit and prove the veracity of how strong it was and what actually happened, including the subsequent tsunami that happened in 1700, in January 1700, when this earthquake hit. Now, why do we know that? Why and how do we know that it hit in January 1700? Because, folks, that earthquake, that 9 to 10.0 magnitude earthquake, generated a tsunami of anywhere from 100 feet high to 150 feet high. And that tsunami did not hit the west coast of the United States, up north and further south into northern Mexico. That tsunami went completely across the Pacific to the west, to Japan. And it hit Japan in a huge way. The Japanese have kept remarkable records of when it hit. That's how we know when that earthquake hit. The North American Indians that also lived in the area kept records. The North American Indians thought it was a large bird that created the ground shaking. They equated it to a large bird, and their records point to that same time period. There was also a man in a ship. It's not like today's ships. Those ships back then were made out of wood. Very strong ships, but made out of wood. And that oceangoer said that when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hit, he saw either Mount Rainier or Glacier Peak erupting. Okay? So we have pretty good records as to what happened and when it happened. Now, my friend Carolyn Martin from Denver, I've known her for over 20 years. She's a very close friend of mine. She says confused because her head is buried somewhere between where the sun doesn't shine. Somewhere where the sun doesn't shine. And she's right. She's right. Don Patoko is one of my mods here, also a very dear friend. If the majority of folks around us don't even care or know what is going down, what can we expect when it hits the fan? Are you prepared and ready to deal with possible chaos and mayhem? Or are you going to be destroyed with either the shaking of the earthquake and the buildings being reduced to rubble, or the tsunami that inundates the land up to 20, 25, maybe 30 miles inland? That's where it is. Are you going to be prepared? The volcanic processes that will release, again, the volcanic processes that will release the Cascadia megathrust earthquake have been underway now at least 3.5 to 4 years ago. Now, this is a bold statement. If any lives are to be saved by forecasting the Cascadia megathrust earthquake within a relatively tight time frame, I would say that all of us need to better start planning our actions now. Now. Now, I still, and Terry Rempel still, cannot predict when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to happen. Some scientists believe it could be now, between now and 50 years from now. Other scientists have even put it at lesser a time frame within the next 25 years. I think it's going to be quicker than that, even during the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm probably not correct either, but I keep analyzing the data, the seismicity, the earthquakes, the amount of earthquakes, and the strength of the earthquakes that are happening up and down the coast to include the volcanoes. Yes, we need to keep an idea on the volcanoes, to keep a close eye on what the volcanoes are doing. How do the volcanoes transfer over to the Cascadia megathrust earthquake? It's quite simple. Anywhere where you see subduction, you're going to see volcanoes. Volcanoes just don't appear without subduction happening. Subduction. In this case, the Pacific Plate, the Farallon Plate, the Juan de Fuca Plate up north. Subducting, deep subduction underneath the North American Plate, the continent of North America. We're talking Alaska, Canada, the United States, mainland, and northern Mexico. The Pacific Plate is taking a deep dive into the center of the Earth. What happens when that happens? It's subducting, it's going underneath the North American Plate. When that happens, folks, it causes the Earth to rise, doesn't it? when there's land going underneath another continent. It causes mountains to rise up, doesn't it? We have proven that. There's scientific evidence of mountain building because the plates are taking a deep dive. With every earthquake, we have mountain building going on of some kind, especially subduction. With subduction, also, the magma that's deep under the crust of the earth, it changes. And some of that magma comes up with that subduction, with those earthquakes. Magma comes up inside the volcanoes. Magma comes up into the crust of the earth where we walk. The crust of the earth is anywhere from 39 miles deep, where we walk, 39 miles to 69 miles deep. That's how deep the earth is that we walk on. The dirt and the rocks that we walk on. 39 to 69 miles deep. That's not very deep. And inside that crust, there are magma channels leading to all of our volcanoes. All of the mountains, and even the volcanoes that have been torn down by glaciation and water. Glaciation and water have sometimes torn those volcanoes completely down. And we see that in Washington in many places, and in Oregon and California, where there's no more volcano visible. The mountains have been dissipated. But we may still see craters in the earth. We may also see areas of earth that are lifted up ground like this in almost a circle, or very close to a circle. That is magma coming up from underneath, lifting up that earth. And sometimes it doesn't go any further than that. It lifts up the ground and that's it. We see that all over Baja California and northern Mexico. All over. And in some other parts of the earth. Okay? So we have to keep our eyes on the volcanoes. We cannot just walk away and look at the other earthquakes. We have to look at the volcanoes as well. Now, why are we so worried about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake? Because, folks, let me bring up another slide here that you need to see. Right here. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, let me find another one here. It's here. I've got it. It's right there. Let me take down my banner for a minute. Okay? This, folks, is the Cascadia area. This is the area that we're talking about. Okay? And it's a rather large area. This is where scientists say that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to happen. Up here off the northern coast of Washington State, where you see the North American plate right there. That line headed south from there is the Cascadia subduction zone. It also heads north. The easternmost line that continues to head north here past the Explorer Plate. That also goes all the way up to Queen Charlotte Island, British Columbia. Okay? The Cascadia subduction zone. This is the area where the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to start. I also already talked to you about the Juan de Fuca Plate and the Pacific Plate subducting underneath the North American continent. The study area there is where we believe that the earthquake is going to hit. The major earthquake is going to hit. The earth is going to shake like we've never seen it before. No person who is alive today was alive in 1700 when this earthquake last hit. Right now, we're some 200 or 300 years past the due date for the next Cascadia megathrust earthquake. We're already overdue. This earthquake could happen at any time. Okay? And after it hits, the earth is going to shake. In the past few days, and also for months now, I've been showing you seismograms from earthquakes that last 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 minutes at a time. Earthquakes. Some of these are minor earthquakes, others are small earthquakes. We've even seen some long-lasting small 3.0 to 3.9 magnitude earthquakes lasting minutes. Minutes. That's a long time for the earth to shake. When I lived in San Diego County, I was there in San Diego when we had 3 5.7 to 5.8 earthquakes. One of them lasted about 6 or 7 minutes. I was in Lakeside, California. That earthquake lifted me up off my bed and dumped me on the side of the bed. Yes, I lived on the edge of the bed. That's where I slept. That's where I still sleep. That earthquake lifted me up and threw me off the bed. And I've told this story many times. I had a plate glass window directly above me after that quake hit. And I looked up and I saw that plate glass going like this, just like the waves in the ocean. I thought, oh my gosh. This was right after it happened. I thought, oh my gosh, that window could come to pieces and I could die. I could get seriously injured. So I moved really quick. I mean fast. I rolled over onto my bed and continued rolling, grabbed my pants off the edge of the bottom of the bed, threw my pants and a shirt on, and ran to the doorway of my bedroom. Back in the day, during the 90s, that's where seismologists said, and scientists said, and emergency managers said, was the strongest part of our home, because we had a wooden plate about that deep protecting us. A wooden beam that's that wide above us, protecting us in the doorway. That's not the case anymore. I stood in the doorway for several seconds, and I saw parts of my ceiling in the living room and the bedroom falling down to the bed and to the floor. I thought, oh my gosh, if this earthquake continues, I could be caught in the middle of my apartment, crushed, because there was another apartment above me and the ground was still shaking. I ran to my front door and flung it open. Then I stood in that doorway until I saw pieces of my neighbor's concrete landing above me falling down in front of me on my porch. I thought, oh my gosh, this is not a good place to be standing. Yes, I had that great big thick beam above me, but my neighbor's concrete landing was going to fall and possibly fall into me and hurt me or crush me. So I quickly ran outside of my apartment. I don't think I even thought of closing the door behind me. I ran like my life depended on it. I moved out into an area between buildings of my apartment complex where there's no trees, no light poles, no power poles, or anything that was going to fall on me, including a building. Just at that moment when I got to what I thought was a safe place, this little old American Indian man from the Brona tribe of Indians in that area ran out of his apartment and began strangling me. His arms wrapped around me so tight that I could hardly breathe. Right after that, the ground was still shaking, and my neighbor ran down the stairs from her apartment and ran down to me and threw her arms around me too. And all of a sudden, I was being crushed between two people. The ground was still shaking. Just a moment or so later, I heard water sloshing, and I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? I forgot that we had a pool. Water was sloshing out of the pool in waves anywhere from 7 to 12 inches high. Water sloshing out of the pool, and the ground was still shaking. After a time, the ground stopped shaking. My neighbors loosened their grips on my body where I could breathe again. The water from the pool started running down a little bit of a grade to where we were standing. So we moved away from the water. And my lady friend, my neighbor above me, looked at me and said, is the ground going to continue shaking? I said, possibly. There could be an aftershock. And yes, there were some very minor aftershocks. Nothing like that 5.7 magnitude earthquake that hit. There was one other earthquake after that hit in the middle of the afternoon. That earthquake in Lakeside that morning happened at 7 a.m. in the morning. An earthquake prior to that, about 8 or 9 years before that, also happened at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Both those earthquakes happened at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The next 5.6, 5.7 earthquake hit in late afternoon, about 4:30 in the afternoon. It shook the truck that I was driving. I had a small pickup truck with a camper on the back of it. Actually not a camper shell. I felt my truck moving. I had shut it off. The engine was off, but my truck was bouncing around. And I'm going, oh crap. So I hit my brake many times. I pounded on my brake. I wasn't going anywhere. I looked up, and the power poles were doing this number. They were bobbing all over the place. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. Otherwise, those power poles could snap and smash my truck and kill me. So I quickly turned on my truck and drove away from that area and got away from trees and power poles. Later, I came back to that area after the earthquake hit, and things were fine. Why am I telling you this? Because this kind of stuff is going to happen. It's going to happen in a larger way. We had some minor earthquakes after those large earthquakes hit. Folks, we had quite a few large earthquakes before and after Northridge. And there were large earthquakes, aftershocks. large earthquake aftershocks and lots of tremors. And they continued for months. We had had tremors and minor earthquakes prior to Ridgecrest, prior to Northridge. Nobody figured that those earthquakes were going to hit like they did. But again, those earthquakes may have been a lot larger than what the agency said they were. Why am I telling you this? It's called emergency preparedness. Emergency preparedness. When this earthquake hits, guys, it will not, and I'm going to say that again, it will not be pretty. For those people that think that, oh, I can get through this, there's not going to be any problems, we'll get through this. This earthquake will be stronger than anything that any of us have ever seen before. Bigger and stronger than any of us have ever seen before. Okay? Let me move this map over. I'm going to move it over and I'm going to enlarge this map. I want you to see the entire Cascadia subduction zone from Vancouver Island south to Northern California here. To the north, Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia, Canada. I just highlighted an earthquake, a 1.6 tremor, Euclid, Canada, right on the coast of Vancouver Island. To the south of that. Now, I don't know if I'm going to even pronounce this correctly. Esquimalt, Canada. Esquimalt. Esquimalt, Canada. That's also 1.6 tremor. 1.6 tremor. Let's go over here into Washington. Guess what volcano this is? This is Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier. They're showing us several minor tremors at Mount Rainier. This is a 0.2 microquake. And if you go over to the USGS map, they're going to show this as 14 miles east-northeast of Ashford, Washington. Hell's bells, everybody! This is not just east-northeast of Ashford, Washington. This is at Mount Rainier, a volcano. Why are they not recognizing the fact that this is at a volcano? Because they don't want anybody even thinking about a volcano, although they can plainly see it by where it is. They want everybody to think of it closer to a town or a city. That's a 0.2. There's two others. This is a 0.4 microquake. This is a 0.9 1.0 tremor. Yes, they call it a 0.9. I'm calling it a tremor because the 0.9 Society is very active with United States Geological Survey. They're constantly downgrading earthquakes to the nearest 0.9. So this could in fact be a 1.0 minor tremor. But I will guarantee you, I've shown you the 2 seismograms from Mount Rainier tonight. There are a lot more microquakes at Mount Rainier today than what they're showing here. There's a lot more minor tremors than there are here on the map than what there are on the seismogram. The seismogram is a data sheet. It can be trusted more than this minor map glitch. It's not just a human glitch. This is lying to society. This is lying to the population of the United States that will be affected when this volcano blows. When Mount Rainier blows, that whole area from Mount Rainier is going to go. There's going to be an eruption probably up to 12 to 25,000 feet high of ash and gases up to 25,000 feet high. And that ash and gas is going to cover areas to the north, including Canada, and areas to the south going down into Northern California, and out to sea to the west, and out to the east to North Dakota and Minnesota. Because, folks, scientists have found evidence of ash all the way over into North Dakota and Minnesota. North Dakota and Minnesota. My Scandinavian accent has come back. Yeah, folks, that's true. People will get inundated by the ash and the lava that comes down the sides of the volcano. They're called flanks. The sides of the volcano are called flanks, and lava is going to pour down the flanks of this volcano. But notice, USGS is not showing any more tremors, microquakes, or earthquakes at any other place, including Mount St. Helens that we spoke about earlier, where I showed you one seismogram from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, because they don't want anybody to know what's going on. USGS is not showing anything either. I showed you seismic energy in the form of magma beneath this volcano causing tremors and earthquakes here at Mount St. Helens. And they're not showing that, are they? I could show you seismograms like I did earlier on Monday. Seismograms showing tremors and earthquakes at all of the volcanoes in the Cascade Mountain chain. In the Cascade Mountain chain, going from up here at Mount Baker and all the way down south into Southern California at the Salton Butte volcano in Imperial County. I showed you Monday of what was actually going on. And I showed you Monday what they were showing on the maps, because they don't want anybody to know what is happening. Now let's go down south to the Cascadia subduction zone in the south side. Okay? Today we're showing 3 seismic signals here. This one closer to shore here. This is off the coast of Ferndale, California. This is a 2.3 magnitude earthquake, minor earthquake. This one is a 3.0 small earthquake. Now, I'm going to concentrate just on these 2, because these are near Ferndale. Just further off the coast of Ferndale, 2.5 months ago, we had what USGS said was a 6.8 magnitude earthquake happening approximately right here. off the coast in the Pacific Ocean. They said it was a 6.8 earthquake. I pulled up scientific documents, including seismograms and helioplots, showing that this earthquake was at least an 8.0 magnitude earthquake. An 8.0 magnitude earthquake, 12 times the strength. Actually, I'm sorry, not 12 times, 120 times stronger than the USGS said it was. It came out as a 7.1. They downgraded to a 6.7 finally. It was a lot stronger. It was an 8.0 magnitude earthquake. These two earthquakes right here are aftershocks of that 8.0 earthquake. This 3.0 here and this 2.3 here. Aftershocks of that earthquake. Ferndale, Rio Del, and Petrolia had aftershocks that destroyed property, and it killed 2 people in Ferndale and Rio Del. Okay? One person had a heart attack. Now today, this earthquake is north of the San Andreas Fault. It's east of the Cascadia subduction zone. That red line that you see going north is the Cascadia subduction zone. This is a 2.6 earthquake, 27 miles west-northwest of Petrolia, California. Right here, just south of there, we're showing you what the triple junction is, where 3 different earthquake faults come together. It's called a triple junction. The Cascadia subduction zone from the north coming together with the San Andreas Fault running from here all the way down through California, and the Gourd Escarpment coming from here running further out into the Pacific Ocean, a lot farther out into the Pacific Ocean. Why am I telling you that? Because, folks, just about 3/4 of an inch west of this triple junction area, just 2 days ago, we had a 4.0 earthquake here. A moderate 4.0 earthquake here, west of the triple junction. There was also a 3.2 aftershock from that. A 3.2 aftershock from that. And that's fine and good. Okay? But a media outlet online had their headline, 4.0 hits off the coast of Northern California. California issues an immediate alert for a major earthquake. Yeah, folks, that was the headline this morning. Online. Yes, it blew my mind. It should have blown my mind. It should have blown everybody's mind, because they lied. The person that wrote that earthquake said that they were an expert. They were far from being an expert. Way far. Way far from being an expert. It was on a media outlet called Newsbreak. Now I'm going to try to find this same article that I saw earlier. And I called them all on the carpet. Because, folks, they lied to the public. There is no alert level issued as a result of that 4.0 magnitude earthquake on the Gorda Escarpment. No earthquake alert listed in California as a result of that earthquake. None. I know that for a fact. I checked. There has been no earthquake alert issued. Okay? I'm just quickly trying to go through here to see if it's still here. Because I put it in a comment. I put 4 comments down. Long 1,000-word comments. Okay? Just a second. Wow. Just a second, see if I can find it another way here. That's interesting because now I can't even find it. Maybe they took it down. I doubt it. But maybe they took it down. And rightly so. If they saw something that was not right, maybe they did take it down. Let me just check something. Nope. It's not showing me anywhere. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you what happened and give you it firsthand, but they've taken it down. That's all right. That's okay. But folks, that 4.0 earthquake that hit 2 days ago over here on the Gorda Escarpment, that I do not believe is a precursor to a Cascadia megathrust earthquake. The online news report equated this 4.0 earthquake being a precipitator of a much larger earthquake that would activate the San Andreas Fault. I'm going to talk about that now in the time remaining here. Because yes, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake could activate that fault. And I'm leaving this up here so you guys can watch this while I'm talking about it. Okay? How is the Cascadia megathrust earthquake released? In a summary here, The Cascadia is being held in place only by friction. Only by friction. We've talked about this before as well. What is happening? The Pacific Plate, the Juan de Fuca Plate, the Farallon Fault are being held in place by dirt, grime, stones, gravel, biological material. We have seen what happens when all that gunk that's down there holding the plates in place by friction. When that is heated up, all that biological material that's down there turns into grease. And that allows the fault to move, allowing the earthquake to happen. The Cascadia fault zones are being held in place by all that biological material down there at the base of the fault. The location of the friction is known as the Cascadia subduction zone, the subduction zone region. The zone is under the Cascadia chain of volcanic mounts, undersea volcanoes out there as well. The undersea fracture zone is just west of the coasts of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Once the stress is built up over hundreds of years, like it has been, the stress is seeking to be released. We have even seen 5.0 earthquakes on the Gorda Escarpment. On the Gorda Escarpment. Yet, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake has not occurred after that, which puts that news article out to lunch. We've had 5.0 earthquakes further out on what they call the Gorda Ridge, which is also another line that runs from the western side of the Gorda Escarpment and runs up into a diagonal line running up towards what they call the Blanco fracture zone. We've also had 5.0 earthquakes on the Gorda Ridge. Then, on top of that one, there's another diagonal line that runs out northwest. It's called the Blanco fracture zone. We have had numerous 5.0, 5.5, and even 6.0 earthquakes on the Blanco fracture zone, all up and down the Blanco fracture zone, which runs from the Gorda Ridge all the way out to the Juan de Fuca Plate. The Juan de Fuca Plate, like we showed you in this very diagram here in front of you. Let me bring it down here so you can see it. I want you to completely understand what we're talking about. Okay? You see the Gorda Ridge reaching up to the Blanco fracture zone here? The Blanco fracture zone connects with the Juan de Fuca Fault, which is a zigzag fault line going up and connecting to the Cascadia subduction zone just south of Queen Charlotte Island, Vancouver, Canada. Or not Vancouver, Canada, but British Columbia, Canada. The Juan de Fuca Fault. Any one of these fault lines could give and cause the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. But the most likely spot is going to be off the coast of Seattle and Vancouver, Washington. Now, 3 years ago, there was a conference of seismologists in San Francisco. And they got together and they talked about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happening. Because everyone knows that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to happen. We just don't know when. and ideas were put forth at that convention, at that conference. Chris Goldfinger, who's professor of the Oregon State University system, professor of geology, he put forth the idea, and it's accepted throughout the seismologist community, that when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happens, because of its connection with the San Andreas Fault at the Triple Junction, it could actually trigger the San Andreas Fault to move. And the San Andreas Fault could move in a very, very big and dangerous way, to the tune of an 8.0 and 7.0 earthquakes going south, all up and down the entire coast of California and into northern Mexico. Because the Cascadia subduction zone goes through the entire state of California and goes down through Southern California, in through northern Mexico. Then it goes down here into the Gulf of California, continues down through the middle of the Gulf of California, and all the way down south, the coast of Mexico. All the way down south to the coast of Mexico. And again, you don't see USGS reporting any earthquakes around Mexico, are they? They're not showing anything but out here off of the Riviera of Mexico. Puerto Vallarta, Zihuatanejo, Manzanillo area. This is a 4.0 earthquake here. It's in the Aveyah, Gedo, G-I-G-E-D-O, Gedo Islands region. The Aveyah, Gedo Islands region off the coast of Mexico. It's called the Riviera of Mexico here. But they're not showing any other earthquakes, which is a lie. It's an out and out, bare-faced lie. There are tons of earthquakes out here, guys. Tons of earthquakes out here, and they're not telling us about it because they don't think they have to. Yeah, people are going to die. People are going to be killed because the USGS is not doing their darn jobs. They're not doing it. They are not showing any respect for anyone. Nothing. Yes, folks, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake could trigger the San Andreas Fault. Okay? We see the San Andreas Fault leaving the Triple Junction here. It follows the coastal area down here, all the way down here to the San Francisco Bay area here, right here. You see the San Andreas Fault here on the west side near the entrance of the San Francisco Bay. There is an earthquake, and they call it a quarry blast. We've had several such quarry blasts here in the San Francisco Bay before. I want to show you this for kicks and giggles. Yes, folks, there is a quarry here. Right there. This could very well be a quarry blast on the edge of the San Francisco Bay. Yes, this could be a quarry blast. And if it is, the USGS is right again, because there have been about 3 quarry blasts here in the last year. There is a quarry here on the edge of the San Francisco Bay in the Santa Venetia, California area, right next to the bay. Okay? Yes, there are more earthquakes here than they're showing us. But again, they won't tell us, will they? over here, just on the southwest side of the San Francisco Bay Area. This is Portola Valley, California. It's a 1.0 magnitude tremor on the San Andreas Fault. Anywhere through this area, folks, the San Andreas could give up a 7.0, 8.0, even a 9.0 earthquake. Because that earthquake that we're going to see up north is going to trigger the San Andreas Fault to the south. And the seismic energy is going to travel all the way down here. And it's going to continue to travel through the multitude of earthquake faults down further south and continue to trigger those faults as well. The San Andreas Fault continues southeast of Monterey Bay here. Over here on the fault is Tres Pinos. 2 years ago we had a 5.0 here on the San Andreas Fault. It broke a pipeline at an oil refinery here, and there was a major fire there right after the 5.0 earthquake hit. There was damage there, aftershocks all over the place. Over here is the Pinnacles. Folks, this is a volcanic area. This is the location of oil and gas mounts. Oil and gas plots all over this area, pumping oil and gas right next to the San Andreas Fault. This is a 1.8 tremor. Further southeast here, having nothing to do with the San Andreas Fault, this is on another fault. This is a Calaveras Fault here. It's a 2.0 earthquake here in New Idra, California. Continuing south here on the San Andreas. This is Parkfield, California, a 0.9 magnitude microquake or a 1.0 tremor in Parkfield, California. Earthquake capital of California, folks. Earthquake capital. Earth roadways have been altered because there have been so many earthquakes here in Parkfield. Roadways have moved. They even had to reorient a building along the fault zone in Parkfield, California. A factory had to reconnect because the buildings moved opposite. They moved opposite of where these faults are. Roadways altered in Parkfield, California, earthquake capital of California. And seismic energy is going to continue to travel here, all the way down here. All the way down here. See this earthquake just a bit northeast of the San Andreas Fault here? This is a grapevine in California, a 1.6 tremor, 12 miles north-northeast, or they say it's 12 miles north-northwest of Grapevine. It's 12 miles north-northeast of the Grapevine. USGS still can't get their heads together. Over here, guys, is the intersection of the the Garlock Fault and the San Andreas Fault. The Garlock Fault leaves the San Andreas Fault and moves up in a north-northwesterly or north-northeasterly direction up here into the Ridge Crest area, into the Ridge Crest and Searles Valley area, the Mojave Desert, where they're not reporting any earthquakes, and that's a fallacy as well. There are earthquakes there. They're just not reporting them. Going back down here to the south, the San Andreas Fault continues south, east of the Los Angeles area. Over here, Just east of LA is Little Creek, a 1.2 tremor here. Just west of there is Fontana, California, a 1.7 tremor. On Tuesday, I showed you tremors and earthquakes over here in Fontana. Fontana here. I showed you seismograms all over Los Angeles, even going down into San Diego and Imperial County, California, Southern California. Earthquakes all over. Earthquakes that USGS was not telling us about. Yeah, folks, there are. Further south on the San Andreas Fault, we have Banning, California, a 1.2 tremor there. Over here, also on the San Andreas, Cabazon. Cabazon and Banning area, and even further north up into Idlewild, California, in the San Bernardino Mountains, are all part of what they call the Anza Gap. The Anza Gap is a very seismically sensitive area where we see large clusters of microquakes, tremors, and even earthquakes to happen. This whole area between here and the Salton Sea was covered in microquakes, tremors, and earthquakes all the way up to Ridgecrest before the 7.1 earthquake happened in Ridgecrest, California. This whole area was covered in earthquakes. The San Andreas Fault runs down the east side of the Salton Sea down here in Imperial County. When it comes into Imperial County here, they call it the Imperial Fault. The same thing, the San Andreas / Imperial Fault. You'll notice that the San Andreas Fault goes underneath the Salton Sea here in the southeastern part of the Salton Sea. It runs underneath there, and it comes out from underneath the Salton Sea on the south side. It then runs southwest. We have an earthquake just north of the San Andreas Fault here. This is a 1.5 magnitude tremor. The USGS is calling it 8 miles west-northwest of Calipatria, California. Folks, if you have been with me any time at all, this is in the water of the Salton Sea. It's also right south of the Salton Butte volcano. The Salton Butte volcano is underwater here on the south side of the Salton Sea. So this earthquake, guys, this tremor is part of the Salton Butte volcano. This has nothing to do with the San Andreas Fault, even though the San Andreas Fault is south of there. Let me bring up the San Andreas Fault again here. Okay, now you see it. This earthquake right here, this is Westmoreland, California. 3 miles northeast of Westmoreland, California. This is a 1.9, 2.0 earthquake on the San Andreas Fault in Imperial County. If I showed you the seismograms here in this area, you would see hundreds of earthquakes more than this. Just on the Calipatria seismogram alone shows 150 to 200 earthquakes today. Some of them on the San Andreas Fault. Can you imagine what's going to happen when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hits? Guys, it's verifiable. It's verifiable. We have compiled evidence to prove this. The evidence is all verifiable. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake can be forecast within a matter of years, not months like we had originally thought, but years. We have discovered that there is an intrinsic relationship between the activity at the volcanic mounts, the volcanoes under the ocean in British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and even Northern California, and the release of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. It is scientifically established that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is a subduction earthquake. I talked about that earlier in this broadcast. We discovered that the precursor subduction specific volcanic activity precedes the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I have shown you even tonight scientific information proving that there are tremors and earthquakes at these very same volcanoes that will erupt, probably just prior to the Cascadia megathrust earthquake going. The speed and the process of this release of the CMTE, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, is not known. Careful study has been made and is continuing to be looked at, and it's going to provide more and more data that will assist us in understanding the rate of development of this megathrust earthquake, this major earthquake. Tomorrow night I'm going to talk about the beginning search for precursor activity of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I want to show you what is happening and what is going to continue to happen here in this area composing 3 states on the west side of the North American plate. It's going to continue happening, and it is continuing to happen now. Does anybody have any questions for me? Your questions are important. In fact, it's funny, because right before I asked for questions, Don Patoka, one of my mods, put up, your questions are important. The only bad question is the one that you do not ask. In this case, it could be bad because if something happens and I haven't given you an answer, the answer might have helped you to get through whatever happens. Okay? I have constantly, in the middle and even throughout my presentations, I've constantly stopped throughout the years to answer questions. I want to make sure that everyone is prepared. I don't want to leave anything hanging. That concerns me. That sometimes scares the kapok out of me. I worry that something might happen that I haven't completely come through with, that I may have missed telling you. NanoGaf is asking, are volcanic eruptions part of the precursors to the Cascadia megathrust earthquake? I just barely touched on that. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. We've already seen undersea earthquakes at volcanoes. Undersea volcanoes erupting with lava pouring out of them onto the seafloor. We've seen that to the north and also down to the southern part of the Cascadia subduction zone region. And on my other device, tomorrow I will try to show you under seamounts up and down the entire region of the Cascadia subduction zone. I want everybody to know what's happening. Because yes, there are earthquakes off land out here in the ocean, and they do affect what's happening. And the Cascadia fault line has been full of earthquakes up and down the fault for years now. And more of it is happening. Michael McKinney says, looks like it has gotten busy. Southern California is going, and other than the usual. Yes, there's a lot more seismic activity happening than they're even showing here now. And that's sad. That's very sad. Because people are going to die. People are going to get hit and hurt. Because the agency is not showing what is going on. Look at the map. I have not done anything to this map. And they have taken down the earthquakes that we had shown you. I took and showed you all these earthquakes going down, even down to the southern part of the border region of California. And they took them down, except for that one that's in blue there. Isn't it interesting that this agency wants us to believe that nothing is going on, that nothing is going to happen? Yeah, folks, I believe that's what they believe. They don't want us to know. That's a sad day. That's a sad day. Michael McKinney, even though he's living on the eastern part of the North American continent, he says that's what he's concerned about. But he very well is right. Because when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happens, yes, it's going to be a megathrust earthquake. A major 9 to 10.0 earthquake. And it's going to shake it across the entire continent of North America, Canada and the United States, and even parts of Mexico are going to shake. And possibly even the entire world is going to shake in some way or another after that earthquake hits. Kimberly Hopkins says, Ron, I've learned so much from you. You are loved and very appreciated. Nanogaf says, for those who survive the bad to happen, there will be a PTSD event to face. Yeah, there might be. There might very much be a PTSD event. Because when something that big happens, there's going to be death and injuries and destruction of a magnitude that none of us have ever seen before. We may have seen things in movies, but nothing in real life even close to this. Yes, we've seen earthquakes in Los Angeles. We've seen earthquakes in San Francisco. Bad earthquakes. Strong earthquakes. But what we're going to see after this earthquake hits will blow that into dust. Promise. Promise, guys. Now, folks, as I have done for quite some time now, I didn't start off this program 4 years ago giving a spiritual thought. In fact, I was criticized for doing it. Then I realized one thing. The people that criticize me don't get it. The people that criticize me for offering a spiritual thought to try to improve someone's life. They're not connected with heaven. They're not connected with the Savior. They're not connected with God. And from my opinion, they don't even care. Yeah, folks, they may not even care. And that's sad. Folks, there is a direct connection to what we've been talking about and heaven. God is in control of everything. Let no one ever doubt that. God is in control. Our world is coming apart at the seams. Elites want to take over. It's very apparent what's going on. But they don't care. Now, I'm going to leave you with a thought. This comes from Luke chapter 9. I'm going to start right now with verse 25, and I may go on for a little while, so if you'll just excuse me and give you something else here to think about. Carolyn Martin says, be safe, be ready, and prepare now. I totally agree, Carolyn, and thank you so much. Carolyn Martin is a very, very dear friend of mine. I care about her. She and her family are very important to me. Back here in Luke chapter 9, verse 27. But I tell you of a truth. There be some standing here which shall not taste of death, till they see the kingdom of God. And it came to pass about 8 days after those sayings, he took Peter and John and James and up into a mountain to pray. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistening. And beheld, there talked him 2 men, which were Moses and Elias, who appeared in glory, and spoke of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. When they were awake, they saw his glory, and the 2 men that stood with him. Verse 33. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. And let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias, not knowing what he said, because he was asleep. But he told our Savior, Master, it is good for us to be here. Brothers and sisters, you that are here with us right now, we know for a fact that it is good for us to be here. I have given you knowledge and power through knowledge that will hopefully save your lives and your family's lives and other people that will hear and see this broadcast. Tomorrow, I will continue this and give you even more information about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. It is good for us to be here. We will be back here tomorrow night just about 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Western, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Master, it is good for us to be here. Until then, please look in your scriptures and prove me wrong. Look in your scriptures to find God you will indeed find him. I know this for a fact. I know the scriptures to be true. The gospel of Jesus Christ is here on the earth. We have the ability to follow Jesus Christ. I know that. I hope all of you have a good night and a better tomorrow. If anything else happens tonight, we will be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. As Walter Cronkite has said, and that's the way it is. Thursday, June 1st, 2023. For Emergency Management Associates, my name is Ron Tyler. I hope you have a good evening. We will see you on the other side. Good night, everybody. Much love. Enjoy yourselves. Be happy. And take care of each other. And love each other. For that's the way God intended it to be. For us to love each other. Take care of each other, everyone. God be with you until we meet again. We will see you later. Good night, everybody.